Okay, everyone, I hope everyone is doing well today. We are going to be focusing on this pseudocode. So, coding is pretty simple. So, when you start off, you got to define your variables. After you do your variables, it's really simple after that. Basically, it's all if. Basically, if this and then that. So if this happens, then that happens. If this happens, then that happens. But you got to set your variables first. And then after that, it can get more complex. Basically, you can go back, change those variables, and when all this stuff goes in hand, I mean, right here, this is the core of what coding is. So I mean, variables. Let's say your health is 100. If collision with the bullet, then minus 10 on the health. Boom. That shoots you back up to the variables. Let's say health. If health equals 0, well, that means something. Death. So you have to do a little code for the death. And that's what pseudocode is, pretty much. Without having double equal signs, without having double sharp signs, or anything of the rather, it's basically where you can freely write out your code. And if you do it right, it almost looks identical to JavaScript or coding languages of that nature. So, for a quick example, I'll just clear off the screen for you. Let's get down to business, and I'll show you how to pseudocode. So, we'll just do what we just talked about. It's a little messy, it's like a chalkboard, what you know. So, try to increase that. Okay, so, basically health, let's say that equals 100. So, what would happen if player, which is you, let's see, if, I actually do not like this example fully, but basically if player collides with the enemy, with the coding language I use, the collision event is, it's a little bit separate outside of this. You got your create event, so when that object is created, when your step event, whenever in game time seconds, steps, whenever a step happens, something happens, you can set up the code. And that was a little bit interesting. But anyways, the collision is outside of the actual coding script area that I normally use. But if player collides with the enemy, then health minus equals, we'll do 10. So basically that negative, this right here, this negative equals would take this 100 or 90 or whatever it actually is currently set to, and subtract 10 out of it. So technically it would be like enemy bullet. So if the player collides with the bullet, then health equals minus 10, so it'd be 90, and then you repeat it for every bullet. So basically if he got hit by 10 bullets, he's dead. But then we'd have to add in the code after that, that if player this would be another variable, dot health is less than 0, we'll just ignore this, I don't feel like whipping out the eraser, then death equals true, because you died. And then you could do another one, and I won't write this one out, but then you could do, inside the player, if his personal variable, if death equals true, then you could do game restart, room restart, player.life minus equals 1, so you take a life away. So, with all that being said, I am going to give you a quick little code, because I used to, and I still am, I'm a trucker, And when I'm on the road driving through Kansas and stuff, it's nice because, I mean, I don't have to count the numbers on boxes. I don't need to keep track of inventory in my head. I don't need to pay attention to the back stock for this customer, yada, yada, yada. I'm freely can just use that part of my brain. So I, like, when I'm trucking, I have, like, code running through my head and stuff. So, let's see if I can do this really quick. So, we're going to talk about unlimited levels. Ooh, get out of here. Ooh, sorry, I had a little thing in the way. Limited levels. Stylus is kind of weird, so sorry about the handwriting. But basically, unlimited levels, how would that work? So, we'd want to set up our initial variables. So, let's see, we got player. Well, actually, these are our objects. We got player. We'll have enemy. And then it's probably the goal. So that would be the objects, but then we need some global variables that apply to everything. So the level, and that's going to be the key here. So if level equals 1, then I'm actually writing this backwards. So it actually wouldn't be an if-then statement. If level equal 1, then create 1 of something, you know? So we're not going to do that for this one. What we're going to do is control the amount of balls. So here's a quick picture of the game we're playing. It's a game I already made, but it's just out there on my hard drive. Black hole. There's your paddle. Here's your ball. So basically right here we do an instance create. What are we creating? We're creating a ball. And then we could do it multiple ways. You can do like times level, or don't have to do it that way either. We could just do before the instance create, we could do a repeat, and then in parentheses level, which is a global variable, what level you're on. So if you're at level 100 balls would be created. So I like to go in by tens. So let's say we're at level 10. We would want 2 paddles. So basically it would be an instance create that we had here. We'd want to repeat it for the amount of times on the level, but because we're going by tens, we'd want a second paddle for every 10. So level 10, you get 2 paddles. You divide it by 10, and then pretty much you'd have to double parentheses this, plus 1, just because in the beginning it would be 0, and be like you'd have no paddles, and you couldn't even play. So if we do that, and then have the balls set on the first part of code we did, we can limit the amount of balls on another piece of code. So if, and I'm out of room, so basically if instance count on the ball / enemy, whatever, and I'm out of room, so I'll have to talk this. If instance count ball is greater than 10, then underneath it, we do another instance destroy. So anything higher than 10, if that's what we wanted, would delete. Let's see, I'm trying to figure out a good way to clean this, and it didn't